The latest CPI inflation report shows that headline inflation in September was 2.4%, down from 2.5% in the previous month. Core inflation, which excludes food and energy prices, rose to 3.3% from 3.2%. Over the past 4 years, the Federal Reserve has aimed to reduce inflation to 2.0% and is confident in its ability to do so. Currently, headline inflation is 2.4%. Inflation is 3.3%. Energy inflation has decreased by 6.8%. Services inflation has risen by 4.7%. Shelter inflation is up 4.9%, and food inflation is up 2.3%. Now, let's look at how this inflation report alters market expectations. According to the CME FedWatch tool, there was initially an 80.3% chance that the Federal Reserve would cut interest rates at their next meeting on November 7th. The market expects a 0.25% rate cut, with a 19.7% chance of no rate reduction at all. After the release of the report, the odds of a 0.25% rate cut rose to 88.4%, while the chance of no rate cut dropped to 11.6%. A 0.5% rate cut in November remains off the table. Let me explain this simply. If the report had shown inflation accelerating sharply, it would have been difficult for the Federal Reserve to cut rates, let alone aggressively. In such a scenario, the Fed would likely pause in November, but that's not the case. Instead, there's a stronger market expectation that the Fed will cut rates by 0.25%. Now, let's look at the December Fed meeting. There's an 86.7% chance of another 0.25% cut at that meeting, suggesting a 0.25% cut in November, followed by another 0.25% in December. According to the Federal Reserve's latest projections from their last meeting, their plan is to cut interest rates by 0.5% by the end of the year. Many are wondering how they will achieve this, whether there will be no cut in November and a 0.5% cut in December, or vice versa. However, Jay Powell, he indicated it would likely be 0.25% in November and 0.25% in December. He did leave some room for adjustment, stating it depends on incoming data. I also want to clarify the Federal Reserve's dual mandate, price stability and maximum employment. In other words, they aim to control inflation without letting unemployment get out of hand. Previously, they focused more on inflation as it was surging, but now their focus has shifted to employment. Their current narrative is that they need to cut interest rates to prevent the labor market from deteriorating. Philip Jefferson, the Federal Reserve Vice Chair, said that the balance of risks has changed. Risks to inflation have diminished, while risks to employment have risen. Right now, the Fed's priority is the labor market. Even though the most recent jobs report was strong, with 254,000 net jobs added, that doesn't necessarily mean the Fed will slow down or pause its rate cuts. Adriana Kugler, a Federal Reserve governor, stated that the Fed doesn't base decisions on a single data point, but rather on trends. Despite the strong jobs report, she noted that the labor market trend is still weakening. Kugler said, "If progress on inflation continues as I expect, I will support additional cuts in the federal funds rate to move toward a more neutral policy stance." According to the Conference Board's latest reports, consumer confidence has been declining since 2021 and is now below pre-pandemic levels. The Federal Reserve is moving toward an easier monetary policy. My expectation is that the Fed will begin the quantitative easing process in 2025. Of course, this shift to an easier monetary policy will be inflationary, but I want to emphasize that there's a lag. We won't see inflation re-accelerate overnight. My expectation is that the effects will start to show as early as 2025, with the full impact felt by 2026. All right, I want to clarify the situation for you and give you an update. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe and have a wonderful day for you and your family.